Last Tuesday, I drove myself to the grocery store. I parked in my usual spot, walked the aisles, chose my own produce, chatted with the young man who has been stocking the shelves there for about 12 years now, and drove myself home. I put away the groceries, made my lunch, and sat in the garden for a while in the afternoon sun. I am 98 years old, and I can see perfectly well enough to do all of that without asking anyone for help. 15 years ago, I was not sure I would be able to say that, because 15 years ago, my eyesight had been quietly failing for long enough that I had started making small, private adjustments to my daily life that I had not told anyone about. I stopped reading the menu at restaurants and started ordering what I already knew by heart. I stopped driving after dark entirely, telling my family I simply preferred being home in the evenings. I started sitting closer to the television. I started squinting at my own handwriting and not recognizing it as my own. I had not told my daughter any of this. I had not told my doctor most of it either, because I was 83 years old, and I believed, the way my generation was taught to believe, that failing vision was simply what getting older meant, that there was no argument to be made with it, that you simply adjusted and managed and let the world get a little blurrier every year, and that was the price of a long life. What I am going to tell you today is what I wish someone had told me at 83 instead of at 84, when I finally stumbled into the information by accident. Because there are 7 specific fruits that do something remarkable for aging eyes, and most people are either not eating them at all or eating them in a way that cancels out most of the benefit. And the difference between eating them correctly and eating them incorrectly is the difference I experienced between 83 and 98. Between adjusting silently to a narrowing world and driving myself to the grocery store on a Tuesday morning. Before I give you the list, I want to ask you something. Drop a comment below and tell me your age and where you are watching from. I love to imagine the kitchens this old voice is reaching into. We are a small, quiet family, you and I want to know who you are. And before I tell you anything else, I need to tell you about my sister Margaret, because this was never just about eyesight. It was about Margaret, and about a promise I made to myself in the parking lot of her care facility one evening 11 years ago. Margaret was born 3 years before me, which means she spent most of our childhood with a slightly more authoritative view of everything. She knew the proper way to set a table, the correct hem length for a dress in any given decade, and the exact number of minutes required to soft boil an egg to her satisfaction. She was the most precise person I have ever known, and she had the most beautiful handwriting of anyone in our family. Cards from Margaret looked like they had been printed by a professional. By the time she was 79, Margaret could no longer read her own handwriting. By 82, she had given up driving. By 84, she had given up sewing, which had been her great pleasure for 60 years, because she could no longer see well enough to thread a needle. Her world contracted the way a tide goes out, slowly, almost imperceptibly at first, and then faster, and then all at once. She moved in with her daughter at 85. She stopped writing cards at 86. At 88, when I sat with her on Sunday afternoons, she would hold my hand and listen to me read aloud, because that was what there was left for her to do. Margaret had macular degeneration, which is the leading cause of central vision loss in adults over 60. Her doctors had explained this to her carefully, and then handed her stronger and stronger glasses every 18 months. Nobody had ever explained to her that certain foods eaten in a specific way could have meaningfully slowed what was happening, not reversed it once it had progressed to the stage Margaret reached, but meaningfully slowed it. Given her more years of reading her own cards, more years of threading a needle, more years of seeing the faces she loved clearly. I learned this a year after Margaret's daughter called me to say Margaret had gone, quietly in her sleep. And for a long time I sat with the grief of that phone call, and also with a very specific anger. Not at Margaret's doctors, who I understood were doing what they knew how to do, but at the idea that information exists in the world that could have helped her, and nobody had sat her down in a plain chair and told it to her plainly. So that is what I am going to do today. Tell you plainly what I know, what 15 years of eating these 7 fruits the correct way has done for my own eyes, and exactly how to eat them so your body can actually use what they contain. But first, you need one picture, because without this picture, the fruits will seem like a list of facts that are easy to forget. With it, everything will make sense and stay with you. Think of your retina as a garden that someone has been tending for 7 or 8 decades. A good garden, producing well, doing everything it was asked to do. But every garden accumulates damage over time. Dry spells, harsh light, soil that becomes depleted. In your retina, those stresses come in 3 forms that researchers have identified clearly. There is oxidative stress, accumulated damage from sunlight and from the normal processes of living that wears down the cells that give you sharp, clear vision. There is inflammation, a quiet, low-grade fire that smolders in the eye tissue and gradually blurs the signal between what you see and what your brain receives. And there is glycation, a process in which excess blood sugar binds to the proteins in your eye tissue and clouds them the way fog clouds a window, progressively and relentlessly. A garden going through all 3 of those stresses at once will decline. The question is how quickly, and whether the gardener has the right tools. These 7 fruits are the tools. Each one addresses one or more of those 3 processes. Each one contains compounds that your retina genuinely needs for its nightly repair cycle, because your eyes do most of their cellular rebuilding while you sleep, in the dark, in the deep, slow hours of the night when your body has nothing else demanding its attention. And the reason most people do not get the full benefit from even the right fruits is preparation and timing, both of which I will give you for each one. Let us begin at number 7 and work our way to number 1, which is the fruit sitting in my kitchen right now that I believe did more for my vision than anything else on this list. Number 7 is kiwi. Small, brown, a little fuzzy, and almost universally underestimated. I walked past kiwis in the grocery store for most of my life, without giving them much thought. Then I learned what they contain, and I have not walked past them since. The retina becomes more vulnerable to light damage with every decade that passes. The cells that process color and fine detail wear down under oxidative stress, and before you notice it consciously, fine print starts to blur, and bright lights start to scatter in a way they never used to. Kiwi contains 2 compounds that eye researchers return to again and again, lutein and zeaxanthin. Think of them as internal sunglasses that your body manufactures and deposits directly into the layers of your retina. They absorb damaging light before it can harm the tissue underneath, and they provide antioxidant protection specifically during the nighttime repair cycle. Kiwi also contains a small amount of serotonin, which supports deeper, more restorative sleep, and deep sleep is when your eyes do their most important rebuilding work. A study published in the Journal of Nutrition and Healthy Aging found that older adults who consumed 2 golden kiwis daily experienced measurable improvements in visual sharpness alongside reduced morning dryness and redness. I make what I call my evening kiwi bowl. 2 golden kiwis. I always choose the golden variety because they carry more lutein, produce less acid, and sit easier on an older stomach late in the evening. I slice them in half and scoop the flesh with a spoon, leaving just the thinnest layer attached to the skin, because that layer just beneath the surface contains concentrated antioxidants that most people throw away without knowing. I dice the flesh gently and toss it with a small teaspoon of raw honey and a sprinkle of ground flaxseed. The flaxseed is not optional. Lutein is fat-soluble, meaning your body cannot absorb it without fat present. Without those seeds, much of what the kiwi contains passes through without doing its work. I eat this about an hour before bed. After several weeks of consistency, I noticed that my eyes felt less dry in the mornings, and the slight blurriness I used to experience in the first half hour after waking began to ease. Number 6 is watermelon, and this one addresses a problem that nobody had ever named for me until I was 84, which is why I am naming it for you now. It is called reduced microcirculation. As we age, blood flow to the tiny vessels at the back of the retina slows. These vessels are the lifelines that bring oxygen and nutrients to the tissue that produces your vision. When they become sluggish, the retina does not receive what it needs during the night, and the result is that frustrated experience of waking after a full night's sleep with eyes that still feel heavy, foggy, and slow to clear. Watermelon is more than 90% water, so the hydration benefit to the eye tissue is genuine and immediate. But the more specific benefit comes from lycopene, a carotenoid antioxidant found in the red flesh that has been linked in research to reduced oxidative damage in retinal cells and protective effects against the kind of age-related changes that lead to cataracts over time. There is also something in watermelon, compounds that support nitric oxide production in the blood vessel walls, that helps those tiny vessels relax and widen, so more oxygen reaches the retina during sleep. Here is the preparation detail most people miss entirely. The white rind of a watermelon, the pale section between the red flesh and the green skin that everyone throws away, contains high concentrations of an amino acid called citrulline that specifically supports blood vessel health. I shave a little of that white rind very finely over my watermelon cubes before eating, just a small amount. I add a few fresh mint leaves and a squeeze of lime. And I never add salt. Added sodium raises the pressure inside the eye, which the research identifies as a meaningful and cumulative risk factor for vision loss. I eat this about 30 minutes before bed. Light, refreshing, and better for your eyes than it looks. Number 5 is one that I had never purchased in my life before I was 84 years old, and that is black currants. Tiny, deep purple berries that are easy to overlook and that do something specific and remarkable for night vision and low-light adaptation. The problem they address is retinal microinflammation combined with reduced blood flow to the optic nerve. That quiet inflammation is what creates halos around lights at night. What makes the transition from a bright room to a dim hallway disorienting and slow? And what causes the progressive eye strain in low light that most people simply accept as part of aging? Black currants are exceptionally rich in anthocyanins, the deep pigments that give them their color and that, in the human eye, calm inflammation in the tissue, support blood vessel dilation, and help restore rhodopsin, which is the visual pigment your eyes use to adjust from bright light to darkness. When rhodopsin production declines, your eyes lose their ability to adapt quickly. You step from a lit room into a dim one, and you stand there for a long, uncomfortable moment waiting for the world to clarify. Black currant anthocyanins directly support the production of this pigment. A randomized clinical trial found that adults who took black currant anthocyanins daily over 24 months showed improved blood flow to the optic nerve and meaningfully slower progression of visual field loss compared to the control group. Since fresh black currants are difficult to find in most American grocery stores, I use a dried organic version or a high-quality anthocyanin extract powder, soaked in a little warm water to rehydrate, then paired with a small handful of crushed walnuts. The healthy fats in the walnuts dramatically increase how much of the anthocyanin your body actually absorbs. I eat this in the evening, a couple of hours before bed. The tartness of the currants against the earthiness of the walnuts is actually quite pleasant once you have had it a few times. Number 4 is blueberries, which you almost certainly already have in your kitchen. But I want to tell you something about blueberries that genuinely surprised me and that most people never know. The way almost everyone eats them cancels out a significant portion of what makes them valuable for aging eyes. Blueberries target oxidative damage in the photoreceptor cells, the specialized cells in your retina that allow you to focus on fine detail, distinguish color, and adapt to different levels of light. Years of cumulative UV exposure deplete your natural antioxidant defenses in these cells, and without that protection, clarity degrades and strain increases. The key compound is pterostilbene, which is related to resveratrol but absorbed more readily into the body, and which research suggests can cross into the retinal tissue and act on DINA damage in the light-sensitive cells directly. A 2023 study found that older adults who consumed wild blueberries daily for 12 weeks showed meaningful improvements in visual acuity and reported less eye strain when using screens. Here are the rules that most people violate. First, buy wild blueberries, the small, dark ones, usually in the frozen section, not the large, pale, cultivated ones. The wild variety contains nearly double the concentration of the active compounds. Second, thaw them at room temperature before eating, because freezing and then thawing breaks down the plant cell walls and releases far more of the antioxidants into a bioavailable form. Third, and this is the rule most people violate without knowing, do not combine them with dairy. Do not put them in yogurt or pour milk over them. The proteins in dairy physically bind to the anthocyanins and prevent your gut from absorbing them. I eat my thawed wild blueberries plain, with just a small sprinkle of Ceylon cinnamon, about 45 minutes before bed. Plain and simple and genuinely one of the most effective things I do for my eyes each week. Now, a lot of you ask me about additional support for eye health alongside food. I have been looking closely at a supplement called Glucose 6, and what caught my attention from an eye health perspective is that it works on the glycation process we discussed. the process by which blood sugar binds to proteins in eye tissue and clouds them over time. It uses Gymnema sylvestre to reduce sugar absorption, cinnamon to support cellular insulin sensitivity, and chromium to enhance glucose uptake, all of which work to reduce the blood sugar levels that drive glycation in eye tissue. No stimulants, no harsh side effects. Made in a certified facility here in the United States. I have left a link in the description if you would like to look into it. But as with everything, talk to your own doctor first. And if you are finding this useful so far, please hit the like button and subscribe if you have not. It costs you nothing, and it helps this reach other people who are quietly adjusting their lives to accommodate failing vision when they do not have to be. Number 3 is dragon fruit, specifically the red-fleshed variety. And this one addresses something I had never heard named until I was in my mid-80s, retinal hypoxia, which simply means your retinal tissue not receiving enough oxygen during sleep. When this happens, peripheral vision begins to soften and blur. Colors look flatter than they used to, and you wake with eyes that feel genuinely fatigued even after a full night. The red-fleshed dragon fruit, and you must choose the red flesh, the white variety does not contain what we need, is exceptionally rich in compounds called betalains that support nitric oxide production in the blood vessel walls, widening the tiny capillaries that feed the retina so that more oxygen can move through during the nighttime hours. Here is the preparation detail that almost everyone misses. The small black seeds inside the dragon fruit must be chewed, not swallowed whole. They contain omega-3 fatty acids and magnesium, both of which play documented roles in retinal nerve health. Swallowed whole, they pass through without releasing what they contain. Chewed thoroughly, they release a subtle nutty flavor and deliver their benefit to the tissue that needs them. I scoop the red cubes, place them in a small dish, add a few raw sunflower seeds for texture, and eat this about an hour before bed. A small and beautiful dish that does quiet, important work while I sleep. Number 2 is goji berries, and these have one of the longest histories of any food recommended specifically for eye health in any tradition anywhere in the world. Modern research is now explaining exactly why. Goji berries are among the highest natural dietary sources of zeaxanthin available anywhere. And zeaxanthin is not a general antioxidant. It concentrates specifically in the macula, the central zone of the retina responsible for the sharp, detailed vision you use to read, recognize faces, and distinguish fine detail. It provides targeted protection exactly where macular degeneration strikes first. A 2021 study that followed adults between 60 and 80 who consumed dried goji berries 5 days a week for 90 days found a significant increase in macular pigment density, and not a single participant showed further progression of macular degeneration during the trial. Not one. I soak 2 tablespoons of dried organic goji berries in a small bowl of warm water for about 10 minutes before eating. Soaking is important for older adults because it softens the dried skin and makes the nutrients far easier for an aging digestive system to access. Once they are plump and soft, I drain them and eat them paired with a single small square of dark chocolate, at least 85% cacao. The flavonoids in cocoa have been shown to enhance the absorption of zeaxanthin in the gut. Together, they create a preparation your macula can use overnight. I eat this about 30 minutes before bed. And now, number 1, the fruit at the top of this list. the one that, in my own experience, moved my vision more than any other single change I made. And it may be sitting on your kitchen counter right now. Papaya, not exotic, not expensive, not difficult to find. But when you eat it correctly, it targets the one process I believe was doing the most damage to my own eyes for the longest time: glycation. Glycation is what happens when excess blood sugar binds to the proteins in your eye tissue over years and decades, clouding your lenses the way that fog clouds glass, progressively and continuously, without any single moment you can point to and say that is when it changed. This is the foundational mechanism behind cataract formation and behind a great deal of the blurriness that most people over 60 simply accept as inevitable. Papaya is exceptionally rich in an enzyme called papain, which has documented anti-inflammatory and protein-modifying properties, and which specifically helps address the kind of protein damage that glycation produces. It also delivers a coordinated combination of vitamins A, C, and E alongside folate, nutrients that research consistently links to tear film stability, retinal protection, and reduced oxidative stress in the eye tissue. A 2023 study found that older adults who consumed papaya in the evening showed lower levels of glycation markers, stronger tear production, and measurable improvements in contrast vision within 6 weeks of consistent use. Here are the 2 rules for papaya that I follow without exception. First, it must be fresh. Processed papaya products, juices, canned preparations, dried versions have lost the active papain enzyme entirely. Fresh only. Second, it must be at room temperature. Papain is a live enzyme, and cold suppresses its activity almost completely. I take my papaya out of the refrigerator at least 45 minutes before I plan to eat it. I let it come fully to room temperature while I go about my evening. Then I cut 1 cup of ripe papaya into small cubes, squeeze the juice of half a fresh lime over it. The vitamin C in the lime meaningfully boosts how much vitamin A from the papaya your body absorbs, and eat it an hour before bed. The flavor is gentle and tropical, and the lime brightens it in a way that makes it feel more like pleasure than medicine. After about 3 weeks of eating this consistently, I noticed that my morning vision, the clarity I had when I first opened my eyes, was sharper than it had been in years. Not dramatically, not overnight, but unmistakably. Now, before the list is complete, there are 5 rules that govern all 7 of these fruits, and without them you can eat every single thing I have described and still lose most of the benefit. Rule 1. Never combine these fruits with high-calcium foods eaten close together. Milk, yogurt, calcium-fortified foods consumed within 90 minutes of your fruit can reduce absorption of the key carotenoids by up to 30%. Keep your evening fruit as a separate, standalone preparation. Rule 2. Always pair with a small amount of healthy fat. Lutein, zeaxanthin, and the other carotenoids in these fruits are fat-soluble. Without fat present, they pass through largely unabsorbed. A few walnuts, a teaspoon of flaxseed, a few slices of avocado. The fat is not optional, it is the delivery system. Rule 3. Wash your berries gently under cool water, not forcefully under hard running water. The most protective compounds in blueberries and black currants are concentrated in and very near the skin, and aggressive washing strips them away physically. Rule 4. Eat at room temperature. Refrigeration suppresses enzyme activity across several of these fruits. Take them out 30 to 60 minutes before eating whenever possible. Rule 5. Timing matters more than most people expect. Eat your fruit 60 to 90 minutes before bed. Earlier than that, and the nutrients are metabolized and cleared before your eyes enter their primary overnight repair window. Later than that, an active digestion will disrupt the deep, slow sleep your eyes need to actually use what you have given them. That 60 to 90-minute window is when these compounds are most available to the tissue that needs them. Now, I promised you the part that most lists leave off, the part beyond the food, and I am going to tell you what I believe from 98 years of living, not from any study I can hand you. There is a quiet state of the body and mind that either supports healing or prevents it. I have watched people eat beautifully and still decline. And I have watched people in circumstances that should have broken them continue to thrive. The difference in every case I can recall was not in their laboratory results. It was in what they carried inside themselves. Fear is genuinely hard on the body. My doctor, a patient, thoughtful man who listened more than he spoke, told me years ago that sustained fear and worry produce stress hormones that interfere with almost every repair process in the body, including the nighttime repair cycle of the eye. He did not say this to alarm me. He said it because he wanted me to understand that sleep quality and what the mind does during sleep are not separate from eye health. They are part of it. For much of my 80s, I was carrying a great deal of fear. Fear about my vision, fear about independence, fear about becoming Margaret. That fear, I now believe, was actively working against the repair work my eyes were trying to do while I slept. Because a body under sustained stress does not sleep deeply, and an eye that does not experience deep sleep does not rebuild the way it was designed to. Finding somewhere to put the fear down was as important as finding the right fruit. For me, it was prayer and scripture and the particular quiet of early morning before anyone else in the neighborhood was awake. For you, it may be something different. But find it. Go there every evening before you sleep with as much discipline as you would apply to remembering your kiwi bowl. Because the state you carry into sleep is the state your body repairs in. And it matters. The second thing I learned from 98 years is that gratitude is not a sentiment. It is a physiological act. A person who ends the day counting what is still present, what still works, what is still beautiful, that person sleeps differently than a person who ends the day with an accounting of loss. I know this from my own experience. The years I slept best and healed best were the years I ended the day with something I could genuinely call gratitude, even if the thing I was grateful for was small, even if the thing was only the papaya on the counter and the lime in the bowl, and the fact that my hands still worked well enough to cut them. And the third thing, the one I believe most deeply and that I want to leave you with, is that vision is not only what the eye does, it is also what a person is oriented toward. A person with somewhere to be, someone who matters to them, something they are moving toward, tends to maintain their faculties longer than a person who has decided, consciously or not, that they are finished with arriving anywhere new. Margaret, I think, had made that decision somewhere in her 80s. I do not say this to diminish her. The grief of losing my husband had taken something from me too around the same time, and I understand how a person comes to believe that the major chapters are behind them. But I made a different decision. I made it in that parking lot after one of my Sunday visits, sitting in my car for a long time before I started it. I decided there were still places I wanted to go, and people I wanted to cook for, and gardens I wanted to tend, and conversations I had not yet had. And I think that decision, invisible, unmeasured, never entered into any study, is part of why I am still driving myself to the grocery store on Tuesday mornings at 98. So here is my full prescription for your eyes, and it costs almost nothing. Eat the 7 fruits correctly with fat for absorption at room temperature in that 60 to 90-minute window before bed. Give yourself the 5 rules as a structure, not a burden. Bring the fear somewhere every evening and set it down. End the day with something you can be grateful for. And decide, with whatever words and whatever ceremony feel right to you, that you still have somewhere to be. Your eyes are trying to repair themselves every single night. All they need is what to repair with, the time to do it in, and a body that is not too frightened to let them. Now, tell me in the comments your age and where you are watching from. And if you try any of these preparations this week, come back and tell me what you noticed. I read every single one. If you know someone who is squinting at menus and pretending it is the lighting, or who has quietly stopped driving after dark and not told anyone why, please send them this video. Sometimes the information that changes things arrives not from a doctor's office, but from a voice that has simply been there and come out the other side. I am still here at 98, driving my own car, reading my own books, tending my own garden, and cutting fresh papaya on a Tuesday evening with the lime juice ready and the window open. I will see you in the next one.